Good morning. Blessed Monday to you. I'm Brenda Henderson of Brenda Henderson Speaks. And in today's episode on forgiveness, we'll be talking about unforgiveness, the beginning. Everything has a start. And on last week's episode, I was talking about a seed being planted, an unforgiveness seed that has been planted inside of you that has now taken root and has grown branches. So I think it's real important that you examine who planted the seed, which is what I asked you to think about this week. Identify who planted that seed. And now that you've identified who planted the seed, then we have to talk about what did they do. Now, I alluded to on last week that my seed was planted by my own adoptive mother. And it was planted early as a small child, and it stuck with me. It was in me deep what was planted, and I didn't realize that it was planted. And as it was being nurtured as I grew older, that it was growing into unforgiveness. I know that sounds complicated, but that's what happened, because as a child, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, you're not really recognizing anything except that this is your parent. What your parent says goes. Everything your parent says is correct. So that's the only thing you identify with. It wasn't until I became a preteen, a teen, a high schooler, a person in college, a married woman, an educator. I mean, it went on and on and on and on. And that's just how much that's just how much water I gave the unforgiveness. But basically, now that you know who, you got to know what happened. And my who, let's talk about that, was mom. My what happened was low, and I do mean low self-esteem, also fear, the feeling of unattraction, the need to be praised and loved. All of those things gathered themselves up as I began to grow, into a person. So, excuse me. So in your life, there had to be a who, and there had to be a what. And the who could have been a parent, it could have been a sibling, a relative, it could have been a husband, a wife, a child. It could have been anyone. But whoever planted that seed in you is the individual that you need to address. And if it's more than one, let me explain. If it's more than one, it's because your branches are growing all over the place. Because once you have hurt from people that are important to you, that you love, those branches grow. So it's real easy for you to end up being attracted to friends or relatives or what have you that are going to hurt you, because your root is still there and you're still watering this thing. So anything that looks familiar or seems like it may eventually hurt you or end up in pain, or things that subconsciously we attach ourselves to. And you say, and I know you're thinking, well, no, I don't. That's kind of crazy. But if you just follow along with my series, I'm going to show you when it happened and how it happened and how to get rid of it. So now today, what's the problem? Okay, we've addressed the who, and I'm going to use myself each time. Listen, I want to pause and say thank you for even listening, because that's probably like a million YouTube videos on unforgiveness. But God has prompted me to do this because I've actually been through it. It's not a theory or a book I read. It is a book I wrote, but not one I read. It's not systematic. This is all coming from what God taught me. It is coming from the depth of my heart. And if you follow along, it may not make sense now, and that's okay. But it will make sense later on. Now, the first thing you have to do is address the problem. And the problem is the pain. The pain of unforgiveness, or the pain, I should say, that unforgiveness causes. Well, the first thing you have to do to get rid of that pain is just say, I am not going to entertain the pain anymore. I am not going to entertain the pain. Now, but you have to have a willingness to not want to entertain the pain. There's probably somebody listening right now saying, well, I don't really care what she says. I'm not forgiving them. I am not. That hurt me too bad. They hurt me too deep. They did it too many times. And all of these things, all these factors factor into you holding on to your unforgiveness. And that's fine. That's fine. If you're not going to forgive, if you made that decision you're not going to forgive, there's nothing I can do about it. But I can tell you this. I recognize it in myself, and I recognize the fact that you have made the decision, as I once did, to continually harm yourself, to continuously damage yourself, to continuously not trust, to continuously not love, to continue to get all in your feelings every time you see the person, or somebody talks about them, or you remember, or you get in contact with someone that reminds you of them. You are continuously harming yourself, and that's the problem. That's the problem. You're hanging on to the pain instead of really letting it go. You have got to let it go, and you've got to identify some things and use some tools in order to do it. So the problem is the pain. The who is the one who planted the seed. The what is what happened. And the problem is the pain. And I want to say to you, why should you remain in pain behind someone who hurt you who's not in pain at all? Let me say that again. Why should you remain in pain behind somebody who's not in pain at all, and that somebody hurt you? It's not necessary. It's not necessary. Please understand, it really isn't. Don't take as many years as it took me to understand how unnecessary it is to hang on to unforgiveness. Because let me tell you, you are going to have a greater, larger, more peaceful, happier life when you let it go. Okay, so how you let it go? Well, one of the things is you got to tap into your power of forgiveness. Oh, you didn't know you had a power of unforgiveness? You have a power to forgive. You have a power of the unforgiveness. In Matthew 18:21 and 22, Peter asked God, how many times should I forgive my brother? 7 times? And Jesus replied with no, 70 times 7 times. So if Christ is telling you that's how many times you have to forgive, why you can't do it once? Why you can't do it once? I'll tell you why you can't do it once, because I've been there. You can't do it because every time you think about it, you think they should suffer. You think there should be revenge. You think there's some ways you should get them back, and you should be able to hurt them back like they hurt you. That's not the answer. Guess why? Because it's never going to happen. Unforgiveness that remains in your heart, you have to remember, is simply part of a memory. It's part of a situation, an incident, or an occurrence that has already happened. Newsflash. It's in the past. But your unforgiveness keeps making it ever so present. And as long as it remains present, you're harming you. Unforgiveness is for you. I know you've heard that a million times. But let me explain why it's for you. It's like I stated earlier, because it's only you who is suffering. Have you thought about that? You going around with your I'm never gonna forget. Listen, no, you're not gonna forget what happened. You know, the statement that says, I'll forgive, but I'll never forget. Okay, no. The forgetting part is not forgetting what occurred. It's forgetting how it made you feel. That's the forget. And when you can forget about how that made you feel, then you can begin to forgive. Trust me, it'll be worth your time. God bless you, and thanks for listening today. May you continuously be blessed and continually to toil and dig, uproot the seed of unforgiveness. Unforgiveness in the beginning. And unfortunately, it has a beginning, a middle, but praise God, it also has an ending. Bye now.